Thank you, Andrea. Just space on. There we go, we're working. Good. Let me come around. So what I really like to do is mix biology with chemistry, okay? If you mix up disciplines, it's like mixing up cultures, some really good things can happen. So my personal drivers are economic development, okay? Now, you have, when you're developing the students, you have academic excellence, but you also have to prepare the student for practice, okay? So economic development is my personal drivers. Navigating university challenges, I'm not going to labor on it too much, but obviously there was some breeding issue 20 years ago, so bums on seats are a bit of an issue. The government, in its wisdom, changed some of the visa rules. They brought in what I would call like stealth taxes that's changing everything, which makes doing the research really restricted. So it's a difficult area, okay, to operate in. But that does, I don't know which way to look, that does come as a bit of a surprise. Okay, because if you take the 19, I had to do my maths there, 19 universities and higher education establishments in Scotland, okay, you won't have a guess, I know it's not an interactive lecture, but what that may be, it may be a shock. So it's 17.1 billion, okay, return from the universities. So to stifle the universities when you're trying to boost the economy seems to me to be a bit of madness. If we put that into perspective, so it's not just a figure, that's 10%, okay, of the economic, easy for me to say, output of Scotland, and 1 in every 7 jobs. So as you just heard, I'm part of the biomedical sciences team. Okay, so that's an accredited course, has clinicians on the course. Okay, I'm bound to say it's a really good course, but it is. It's a really great course. So I want to introduce you to them. So you've got Kevin, who used to be program lead, he's moved on now to do some bioethics. You've got Sean, highly research active in fertility. You've got Anne, who's with us today somewhere. Yeah, there she is. Great, who's taken over program lead and is everyone's go-to with statistics. Great, you've got me, you're going to do too much about me anyway. You've got Scott, microbiologist, and without a doubt, yeah, he's here as well, and without a doubt, the best QA person I've ever come across in any university I've been to. He has a very strange head for knowledge and numbers, okay? Last but not least is Kimberly, okay? Now, this is a professorial lecture, so I'm going to do a bit of reflecting. It's not saying I'm used to, but if I could have my time again, I would take an aspect of what she does, and that's using the seals as a model biological system for human health, because that would help me to get over Kevin's bioethics. Yeah, I'm sure he's online somewhere and he's cursing me, but okay, because dealing with the human samples gives you a lot more paperwork. So this team, and not me, because they do the majority of the teaching, have got the best NSS scores of a biomedical sciences crew in Scotland, which is remarkable given that much of the focus is on employability. Okay, so their students have to be ready to go to practice. You don't want the students coming out with high marks and then having them take your samples in hospital or your mum or your child samples. They've got to be fit for practice. So, Andrew already mentioned, we got a new MSc, couldn't resist the chance to plug it. It's being run by Sean, okay? It's in industrial practice and point of care that you're going to hear a lot about. Clinicians are involved in this as well. So there are 2 applied courses. If you know anyone that's interested or might be interested or you want to contribute to the course in any way, people online, please just drop him an email. I can't go any further without acknowledging, okay, Andrew Spires. He passed away at the beginning of this year. He was my go-to guy for an honest opinion, if you like, because he had no boundaries whatsoever. He could say anything when I spoke to him, which was really good. Got really good feedback. So as a way of thanking him, in a way, I'd like to show you his protein, the beautiful silver T. Okay. He would model proteins through bioinformatics related to pones. Now, I don't know how he did it, but it was his passion, and that's what he did. So he's missed greatly. Now, when I got asked to do this, it's a really, really difficult thing to put together. And I had to go to Mary, one of the counsellors, and say, look, help, because I don't know how to pitch this, I don't know what to do. And so she'd done, I went to Mary because she's lovely, and also she'd done a presentation, I've put the link in there, on sight loss, okay, and how that influenced what she was doing. It was fantastic. So I'm going to have a go at that. I'm going to give a bit more of a personal insight into what's going on. It's not something that I've ever done before. So you have to bear with me if it goes wrong. And if it goes wrong, it's Mary's fault, okay? So this is me, right at the beginning, okay? I put this up for two main reasons, okay? To compete with Luke, who put up a baby picture last month, okay? And the other is because I've been hanging around with counsellors for a bit. I've got these things called feelings now that I never really had before, okay? And particularly with constraints, I always feel like I'm only moments away from finishing digging that hole and sticking my head in it and just sort of hiding for a bit, okay? So I had a really good education, but I wasted it, okay? I was sort of, yeah, that's what I remember, being a shepherd. I'm in the pink, okay? The irony was my chemistry teacher, okay, got me a job as an engineer. I think he did that so I didn't stay on for A-levels, okay? But that got me interested in engineering, so I went to Lucas Aerospace. I made Stingray torpedoes, did an apprenticeship. So that was the first real turning point in my life. So at Lucas Aerospace, there was a helicopter landing in the field. Everyone got 15 minutes to go outside, break off the manufacturing. I've just done something, no, it's fine. Off the manufacturing to go and watch this helicopter land. And you'll get the irony of this in a second, okay? To me, it was a turning point because I was like, I cannot be doing this for the rest of my life. These people are so excited about a helicopter landing. I cannot keep making the same torpedoes. I'm going to have to do something else. I knew that I wanted to help people, so much to my parents' utter dismay. I trained really hard to be a Royal Marine Commando. Now, when I did all the different exams, I flew at the engineering exams. And because of that, I ended up in the Fleet Air Arm, being a mechanic on helicopters nonetheless, which is no bad thing because I really didn't look very scary in camos, okay? Far too cute. You can imagine the trouble I got into, okay? So, I ended up joining a specialist unit, and we were based at Salisbury, at Boscombe Down. And interestingly from my point of view, the MOD has its own Area 51, which is in Andros Island. And I had a whale of a time because that's in the Bahamas. So it was a nice, easy laugh for me. But then war broke out and I got drafted onto the Ark Royal. Here I am, still looking rather rugged. Okay. And I don't want to harp on about it, but it wasn't a very nice thing, so I left. Okay. Now, when I left, they said, oh, we can prepare you for civilian street. Okay, I don't think they did, and it offered two courses. I could do bricklaying, or I could do innkeeping. It was a no-brainer. So I did the innkeeping, had another whale of a time, and ended up running, what did I run? A hotel in Lancaster. Now, that was okay, apart from the afternoons. And you get miserable folk come in and they start to tell you about their wives and all the rest of it and moan. They just sit there and moan. And I'm quite vocal. So I would suggest to them maybe they were the problem. And it really didn't go very well. And in the end, I had my first real wobble, if you like, back on the series. So I had a wobble, lost the plot a little bit, technical term there. And I needed help from the Royal British Legion. They suggested that I retrain. So I did an access course, flew at the chemistry, went to my nearest university, which was Plymouth University, rolled up there into halls, lasted about 2 minutes, and then had to book myself into a B&B, and I paid for the cost of it all by working nights at Tesco. 2 years into this, I realized what I wanted to do, where my real passion was. It was in electrochemistry. So I transferred to Bangor University. I finished off with M-Chem and did my PhD. During the PhD, I had to learn some biochemistry, so I got the first of my many thank yous, which is Professor Peter Williams, a classic biochemist, taught me my biochemistry. To him, I'm really grateful. He wasn't best pleased because he said the last few papers that he published where he didn't understand because they were all electrochemical based, but He was really supportive, so thanks, Pierre. I went on for my first research group, got some grants, then had the biggest research group within Bangor, 22 people in that research group. Everything was going really well. No, not a poke at you at all, Liz. We got a new Vice-Chancellor come along who wanted to do a restructure. The Vice-Chancellor was not like Liz at all. He was very special. And he closed down our chemistry. That meant that I either had to teach the undergrads that were left and not do any research, or take a severance package and leave. Hence, I went to China. So I went to Shanghai. So I joined XJTLU, which is partnered with Liverpool, as you heard, so teaching through the medium of English. A few months after arriving, the head of chemistry got promoted to dean. So I put my hat in the ring and took the head of chemistry job. Everything was going really well. The lovely package flying backwards and forwards to see the kids. Yeah, really nice. But then COVID broke up, tugged at my heartstrings. So I got my 2 princesses and there was no way I could stay over and not fly back. So they offered me a teaching-only post from the UK, but no, I like my research too much. So I knew if I was going to relocate, it had to be to Scotland, because I just love Scotland. It's where I'm most relaxed. When I'm in the hills, I can just... It sounds like a strange thing to say for a prof, maybe, but I can just string 2 thoughts together when I'm away from the internet and out. But why Abertay? There's 2 main reasons, really. Abertay is nice and small. I'd flourished in a small university before, so I stood a good chance to flourish, and I like that arena. And the culture. Right from the interview, the culture is absolutely fantastic. I mean, for you guys and girls that have been here for a long time, I don't think you realise quite how special the culture of Abertay really is. It really gets to me. It's like an extension of the family, okay? That was absolutely born true, because I had some news, and I'm not going to share it with you because it's just far too personal, but I had some news that was devastating, and I bumped into this man who's here today. Okay? He has the economy of Abertay stitched into his soul, but more importantly, from my perspective, he helped me out. 15, 20 minutes, coffee, arm around my shoulder, point me in the right direction. Second wobble, over. I don't know if you realise what profound effect you had, but thank you. Okay? So back to the research. That's enough of embarrassing Cullen. Okay. So what do I mean by multifaceted relationship? I mean it's hard. Yeah? You've got to come up with something that's groundbreaking, that's world leading. Ideally, you want to do that boosts the local economy. Okay? And you cannot do it on your own. You need a network. So I've got loads of partners that I've been working with over the years that you need to manage and keep on top of. Okay? And they include small SMEs, large corporates, and academic institutions, and that's really important. So as I began to settle into Abertay, deja vu struck. My head of division moved on. So I put my hat into the ring and took that on. And I'm glad I did, because I have a new perspective on life after working with the mental health nurses and the counsellors, to be fair. So I wanted to do a collaboration that included them all. Okay? So I'd like to I've introduced you to the biomeds, but I want to introduce you to the counsellors. So leading the counselling is Sally. She's absolutely lovely. She leads them really well. The whole counselling team, I can honestly say I'm in love with them all. They're fantastic. They really take care of me. What a brilliant bunch. They don't have NSS, so I can't tell you about the scores because it's a master's program. But I can put up a student comment, and to me, this is the absolute essence of Abertay. It's quite an important point, yeah? A sense of community and create a safe space. To me, that student nailed it, okay? So, what a brilliant team. Jude Kelly, another absolute star, okay? Runs the mental health team, another really strong, brilliant team. Top in Scotland to beat him across the board for teaching satisfaction. Running about 98. I don't know how they do it. I really don't, because they need to prepare those people for practice. Tripped over the chair. It's not going to do it for practice. I haven't even had a brew dog. Good. So I did have a nice picture of Linda. I thought she was going to be here, but apparently she's gone for tapas. So that's the way it goes. So this project that we put together, an example of a collaborative project. Okay, it's on leprosy. So there's still Leprosy is still in 120 countries, okay, with 200,000 cases. It's curable. I'm pretty sure I can detect it, and you'll see why later. But what I wanted to do is when you detect leprosy, it's got a particular stigma associated with it, both for the countries and for the patients. So bringing in the counsellors and the mental health nurses seemed to me to be ideal. Okay, because we're at Abertay, it's not a dig at Abertay, but we needed to bring someone who's used to working in this field. So we teamed up with Lepra UK, okay, and we teamed up with Blue Peter Centre in India. We put this bid in. I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was a no-brainer, but we didn't get it. We got beaten by somebody else, but the bid's there and it will be going in again. So back to my main labouring point, if you like, this cannot be done on your own. You have to work. You have to interconnect with other people. And one big bone of contention for me, if you like, is universities excel at groundbreaking research. Professors and senior lecturers generally, there are exceptions, suck at taking something to market. So I hate to see them try to do it. Liaise with industry, let industry do what they're good at. Okay? It's not as easy as it sounds. Would you think, I know you can't answer me, but the main problem with academia working with industry, okay, I'll just jump to it and tell you so I don't run behind, okay, is understanding each other. It's as simple as that, communication. So acknowledge those differences. The differences, the stark differences are timeline and paperwork. Okay? There are no extensions in industry. The deadline is the deadline is the deadline. Okay? You've got to do that. You've got to stay to it. Expectations. Academics are used to writing bids and getting bids, and you say, I'm going to deliver this, and it's going to be fantastic, and I'm going to do this. But keep it real. Industry can smell this from a mile away. The academics reviewing it may not be able to, but industry can, and they're putting in real money for this. And the other thing is communicate clearly, and I think the main point about this is, in general, again, making another general sweeping statement at risk of getting some questions later, when you work with industry, you put the bids together, and that's fine. If you're lucky enough to get the grant, and it may only be a 2% chance that you get that grant, then you go on, you do the research, you write the final report, and you give it to industry. That's not the way to do it. Okay? Every month have a meeting with industry, continually feedback, let them input at the same time, work with them, treat them as a partner. Okay? I would say treat them like a marriage, but my marriage history is pretty poor, so I'm not going to do that. So left is my whirlwind tour of what I've actually been doing. So just electrochemistry in its simplest form. Okay? So make the electrode positive, negative things come rushing in. Make it negative, positive things come rushing in. That gives you a degree of selectivity for what you're trying to do. So you can play with that. Okay? The other thing you can play with is if you take a molecule and put it down onto the surface, and you change the potential, you can change the orientation of that molecule. So you can make it stand up. You can move the bit you're trying to sense around, and that's really useful. I got off to a really good start, really lucky, some would say. Okay, I wasn't leading this bid, but I was on this bid, so 9 million euros on this bid, and I led the diagnostic aspect of it. There were 30 partners in this bid, 20 were commercial. We did sensing of chemical warfare agents, biological warfare agents, narcotics, and explosives. So the explosives I want to show you. So this is an electrochemical sensor. We got down to 50 parts per trillion. If you don't know what that means, don't worry. Okay, but understand, please, that it means like finding one drop of water in 2.5 Olympic-sized swimming pools. That's the beauty of electrochemistry. You can get down to very, very low sensitivity, and you can play with the potential for the selectivity. So here's an example. We've got lots of explosive compounds. On one side, this is an MOD project, 5 different enzymes here in different concentrations. And we did, this is as close as I get to AI, Les. We did a neural network where we got a pattern of data and then could distinguish not only there were explosive compounds there, which compounds they were in the mixture. So that led to my first patent, first spin out. The company died a death, but the technology went to the States. Go on. Next thank you goes to Steve Colin. I met him and we were putting a project together that he was leading called Calin. Okay. Best project I've ever been involved with, best bunch of academics for a project, really supportive, phenomenal team, another bit of luck. Okay? So this, we took 12 million from a 31 million pot. It was a 4-year project, raised 5.5 million from the industries that were involved, 43 job creations, 209 company assists, 30 papers, and really important for me, 137 new products to market through this project. So it was a really phenomenal project and a phenomenal team. One of those projects I did with BioVici, small Welsh SME. The idea was to sense cortisol as a stress indicator in people that have had a break in their arm or in their skull on the rugby field. That's what these guys wanted to do. They wanted the Welsh team to win. I didn't have the heart to put the Welsh team up there, but they wanted the Welsh team to win. Okay, so if they break the skull, they get a spike in cortisol, stress indicator, and that's what they wanted to do, to be able to test that on the side of the pitch. Currently, they had to go away for an X-ray. It's not worth the risks, so they're off the field. So it's a small molecule, and you'll see pictures of people pop up along the way. There was people who really did the work. I just conducted the work from the side. So we managed to do it. That's excellent. This work is ongoing. You see, we've had a recent paper, and it's still happening in Abertay, this work. Sepsis is something that I'm trying to drive forwards. This is a really bad statistic for sepsis. So 20 million people a year are affected by sepsis. 11 million of them die. Okay. The work we've done so far is to detect the difference between gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria, which are the main causes, if you like, of sepsis, of the inflammation. So we've done that work. Next, we're going to do yeast, which is the remaining third arm to that. And I've joined forces with Kimberly to do antimicrobial resistance at the same time on a lateral flow device. So we have a bid in. We can hope that we're going to get this going. Go. So it's on a lateral flow device. I'm just going to show you quickly. I'm not going to go into the details of what's special about it. Well, this is a result between a gram-positive and a gram-negative bacteria and being able to distinguish it. And that in itself is groundbreaking. Good. I've done a lot of work on TB. You see that man there staring at me. He always stares at me, Professor Mugbird. He's a very grumpy man, but he's the world leader in producing mycolic acids. So 1.5 million people each year still die of TB, and it's curable. So mycolic long organic chain. So there's 3 different classes here that we've been working on. Alpha, methoxy, and keto. We got our first set of data, and to me it was really interesting, but I didn't fully understand it. It's a new arena for me. Okay? So I phoned the World Health Organization, and the guy I spoke to on the end of the phone, luckily for me, was Professor Andy Ramsey. So this is my next big thank you. This guy is so supportive. Whenever there's a pandemic of any sort around the world, even when he's been really ill himself, he's one of the first there to help. He's one of the first there to educate and work out what's going on. So he said to me, well, if you're going to do this sensor, I think your data is interesting, but you need to make it not for the clinic, okay, not even for the little hospitals, but for the field. So I want an answer in 10 minutes. I don't want you to use a power supply. Okay? I want it to be used by someone not specialist in the field. I want it to be able to be stored at 30, 40 degrees by the side of the road when the transport network breaks down. He had a whole list of things that he wanted, and he was right. But we started by doing ELISA. So quick flick over ELISA for you. I'm not sure how I'm doing for time. These are the lipids down on the surface. We put in the sera containing the antibody for TB. Then there's a wash step. Then we put down a secondary antibody that binds to that. There's a fluorophore on it. And then it lights up. So this whole thing takes about 4 hours. We got it down to about 2, but still a lengthy process. Hit and miss, needs a skilled operator. But let me show you that it worked. So we got TB positive, TB negative. Then we changed the structure of the antigen. Okay, and we get a different response. That's interesting because it means we can tune this for different microbacterial infections. Okay, next part. Here's one for M. avium. Okay, so we've got not infected, so bovine samples. Okay, infected with TB, we get a little bit of response. tuned for MAVM, system seemed to be working, so it's really interesting. Okay, so that gives me a next pattern. That's okay, but it's ELISA, so it takes 4 hours, need power. It's not the point of care that the good Andy Ramsey wanted. So we started to look at the particles. So we took a particle, covered it in lipids, simple stuff, okay, put the antibodies on it. So if the patient had the TB antibodies, there we go on it. That shields the particle when you get color change, because gold particles have a resonance. It's that straightforward. So we teamed up with Hygiena, did 350 samples blind. We got really good response, but it turned out to be better for just screening than it was. So it was more accurate at catching all the positives than all the negatives. Okay, that means we had to look at it a bit more detail. So I got this instrument here, Abate. So essentially, without going into too much detail, it just looks at the surface, but rather than giving you an endpoint like ELISA does, it gives you the binding affinity. I'm going to show you an example. I've skewed me in there, to be honest, here. So I've got some nice clean negatives, okay, and then a clean positive, just to show you. So this curve relates to the binding affinity of the antibodies binding together. That allows me to get an idea about what's going on for the next design that I'm going to show you. So then what we did, I want a paper base, so cheap. I forgot that one from the list. It had to be under $1, this sensor as well. Yeah? So rather than a lateral flow where everything just flows along, okay, it sounds simple, but it's actually quite complicated. We went with paper and flowing through. Changed the viscosity of the solution going through. Hence, we could play with the binding affinity. So we put the lipid down, pass the serum through, use particles again as an indicator. It's cheaper, believe it or not, than the tags. Pass that through, and we got this result. Now I was ready to go out on the town, because that's fantastic. Yeah? So we got this red smudge, but the miserable guy in the middle says, that's never going to do, you can't do that. You have to go better. So we didn't go on the town. As you can see, I've oversimplified this grossly. There was a large number of students and postdocs at the top doing this work. It took quite a while. So we had a chip, different antigens down in different wells. The central well is a positive control to show that the chip has been run. The one that's always blank is the blank, okay, just to show that nothing untoward has happened. So then we had to team up again to get an app to record it, because you're telling someone they've got a disease. Good. So basically, home in, take the intensity, okay, next pattern, that company is still active in North Wales. Okay, Buruli ulcerans. So men are particularly susceptible to this. You get an ulcer of some sort, you don't go to the doctors, you can't be bothered. Buruli is even worse because it kills the nerve ending, so apparently you can't feel it. So you leave it and you leave it and you leave it, and if you're not eating, it gets worse, okay? It's a terrible thing. It's in 33 different countries still. It's on the WHO's list, get rid of that picture. It's on the WHO's list of neglected tropical diseases. So I sought the help of Professor Richard Phillips to get some samples and to get some knowledge on the topic, and we had a look at that. So this is another sad bit. This is a PhD student of mine, went on to work at Siemens Bioscience, and she passed away end of last year. She was a bubbly, really enthusiastic individual and a top scientist. Okay, but we did a posthumous paper beginning of this year. So it worked, needless to say. The Buruli also gave a nice response. Amazingly, the negatives were really low. I was expecting the difference, but not this low, because these are all people that have been to the clinic with an ulcer. So I was expecting a bit more of a background. We got the next page. Another project which I think is really interesting. I worked with Ipsen Biopharm. They approached me to do a sensor, and I said, I know nothing about botulinum toxin whatsoever, but I'm willing to give it a go. So, firstly, they said, we don't make Botox. Okay, it's got a trade name, it's called Dysport, and we don't do that. And Dysport we use for changing heart rhythms, okay, and changing ticks. So, like twitches, not ticks, twitches. Right. They know how much they're making, they know how much of it was toxic, because they had to do mouse trials. I got a little twitchy mouse, that's as good as I could do, okay? gives them ethical issues. So what they wanted was a sensor to do it rather than the mouse trials. It'll save them cost as well. Gave me a problem because at the university, I'm dealing with the most lethal toxin known to man. So the lethal dose is 1 to 2 nanograms per kilogram. I'm going to go up 1,000 in units for those that don't base their life on units to ricin. I'm going to go up 1,000 again to cyanide. That tells you how lethal Botox is. So we're working with undergraduate students with these toxins. Okay, you can see my problem. How it works, basically, really rapidly, because I know I'm talking far too long. You've got a toxin, it goes up into the neuron, it's broken into 2 parts. One of the parts cuts another protein called SNAP. I'm going to call this green spaghetti from now on, it just makes it easier, okay? So one of the proteins cuts the green spaghetti. So surprise, surprise, you're getting used to me now. Took a particle, covered it in green spaghetti, put it in a salt solution, really accurate, analytical accuracy, okay, till it's just about on the point of turning colour. Then cut a bit off, it's only 6 amino acids, and watch it change colour. It now worked, which is absolutely amazing. Yeah? But I wanted the sensitivity, so we had to come up in toxin dose. So we took an electrochemical approach. So I took my electrode, covered that in green spaghetti, did the same thing again. So these are all 5 of the botulinum toxins. Okay, we got a negative response for all. We've done our controls, we've done our denatured toxin. It works. Okay, but trying to find an establishment to do this in is quite tricky. In the next slide, I need to push through and be strong. This is a very good friend of mine. Okay, I met him. He was the king of Cardiff as far as I was concerned. He got 4 drugs to clinical trials, did really well for himself, was absolutely down to earth, supporting of the younger academics coming through, just a fabulous Blake. And he supported this project, okay, passed away from cancer. He supported this project as a cancer-related project, and I'm going to move on because I can't say anything else about it. So this is one that run Habitat. This is Jessica and Arling student. Kimberly's in the audience, supporting as normal. Thank you, Kimberly. Okay, so you can take your chemo agent, a prodrug, you can target that to the tumor, or you can target the enzyme to the tumor. If you target the enzyme to the tumor that converts the prodrug, it's called directed enzyme prodrug therapy. So that's what we're doing. This is grossly oversimplified, so take the blue thing to be a cell or a tumor, if you will, bear with me. What we have is the green spaghetti is now a nitroreductase, genetically modified protein. It's on a particle again. That particle is a super paramagnetic particle, means it responds to a magnet, but it's not magnetic, so we can direct it to a tumor. So that's what we do. Okay. Once these are up into the cell, we put in the low toxicity form of the chemo agent. That goes up into the cell, converted by the enzyme, intercalates with the DNA, kills the tumor. In theory, that will give us 100 times dose increase of chemotherapy for the patient without side effects. Okay, so that's quite phenomenal, and we're working on that. I've got a patent on that already. Okay, so genetically modify the enzyme, put them down on the gold. I'm racing again now. Forming these particles, I'm going to pause because I'm looking for collaboration. Okay, forming the particles has taken years to get these just right. Okay, this is a nice image of one of the times where it worked lovely. Okay, we've just repeated it here in Habitat. So far, we've had strange sized pieces with leftover iron in it. Normally pieces that destroy the cells on their own. Christmas trees, God. And the right size, so below 50 nanometer particles that we can cover in our enzyme. So we don't get very much of it. So this is a magnet on a flask, but they're the perfect size. But that's enough for us to work with. So I want to upscale this because I believe that to be a product in itself. It's got other uses, sensing uses, purification uses. So I've got lots of bits going in on that. So what we end up with is something phenomenal on the next slide. We've got a genetically modified enzyme down onto a gold-coated particle. I'm going to jump around now if I don't poke myself in the eye with this aerial thing. Okay, this is evidence, this peak here, that the gold is there. This is the prodrug being produced by the enzyme. It shouldn't really be happening in theory because we genetically modified the enzyme, we've tethered it down, yet it's still active. Phenomenal result. So that just leaves me to thank you, thank my kids for putting up with me working all the time. Okay, so you've got Gemma and you've got Lana. Lana is the one pretending to be a trig point. Okay, I'm open to questions. Good.
I was going to see if Liz was still here, but I had a question, which because if it wasn't me asking it, I think Liz would ask you it.
Okay.
Which is around about AI. So you said obviously about your little mice, and that you have trouble obviously navigating ethics, and it's not considered to be particularly humane now to use animal models or live animal models to support this type of research. Is there, with obviously the advances of AI, will that help your research in any way, do you think?
The honest answer is, I just don't know. I mean, it will in selecting, so we're doing some of the prodrugs that we've used. So we're using one called CB1954, and that's because that's the one that's touched clinical trials. We're also doing some with New Zealand, with the Adelaide University that they've been producing because they're showing promise. So I think AI is most likely to work at being able to choose things like that, rather than I don't think it's going to be able to circumnavigate human samples and the ethics. I think it's more likely to go the other way. Okay. Is my personal opinion.
Hi Chris, thanks for a great presentation. I wonder if you could elaborate a little bit on the sepsis project. Obviously, PR manager over here looking to get a news story out of that one in due course.
I don't think it's news story worthy yet. I mean, we can do it, but just on the two. So on the gram positive and gram negative, I can work with you on that. Yep.
Yeah, superb, thank you. Especially the whole bit at the beginning about the impact on economic development, I think is fantastic. How do you think we help everyone across Abertay realise how to commercialise research and to have that economic impact?
I've given that quite a bit of thought already. Being careful how I answer. I think giving them a chance. Give them a chance to talk to them, find out if they're interested. Not everyone will be interested. Some people just don't want to do it, and that's absolutely fine. Those that want to do it, it's mentorship. I think you sit down and you help to talk them through it. Okay, which I've been doing on a one-to-one basis, but only within small groups at the moment. But yeah, I think that's the way. I think that's the way to.
And do you think is there anything around the language that's used in that space? Because if you talk about commercialising research, does that instantly put people off? Is it about thinking of the different ways and avenues to do that, especially with how you talked about working with industry?
I think the first thing that puts them off is when you just start to put a bit together and then you start to bog down in the paperwork again. So you've got collaboration agreements, you've got non-disclosures and things like that, and that slows them down, and then they think, yeah, I'm not sure that I want to do this because it's quite a mountain. So sometimes you put in a bid and you'll get the grant, and then the real work starts with the hurdles are to jump. So it's trying to get support in for that and the worth for that, because it's a terrible thing to say, I suppose. I'm aware I'm still online, but if I didn't get any bids in, I'd have an easy life because I'm not doing anything. So getting the bids in ups your workload at the same time. It builds your career. I find it exciting. I would want to do it anyway, but do you see what I mean? There's a balance there somewhere. But I think support and mentorship is the best way forwards. I've been really, really lucky with some of the individuals that have come up behind me and put their arm around me and helped me move forwards. And I think that's needed in all walks of life, to be honest. Yeah. Good.
Yes.
Uh-oh.
No, it's fine. I understood some of that. That was great. I mean, it's just fantastic, mind blowing, absolutely brilliant. And it's kind of a follow-on from Simon's question around the the bid, if this is, if this is a really fundamental part of research and driving potential revenue and opportunities to the university, is there an argument to say that you get some really, really good, or one or two really, really good bid writers that understand what you're doing and to free you up to do what you're really good at, clearly, with your team round about you? Is there something there that should be done, or is that too simplistic?
No, there is, but you have to be really careful that people like myself are just not empire building and it all goes into one person. You know, there's a whole team there, so it's trying to help. So I've been helping, hopefully, to Beth doesn't mind me saying, I've been helping to Beth, since she's got a student now and everything's moving forwards, and I think that's time well spent as well. Sorry, my watch is going off at the same time. Okay. Heart rate, probably, is your question.
Thanks, Chris, and I'm going to take a wee bit of privilege here in terms of both concluding the session, but also in terms of just a final question. No, you can stay where you are. One final question I have for you, which is, you know, you talked about the Callan project being probably one of your best research sort of investments and things that you've worked on. But in terms of your proudest research moment, what would you say that was? Sorry to put you on the spot, but what was your proudest research moment?
TV, I think, because I didn't want to get into it because I was partially joking with Professor Mark Baird in saying he's grumpy, but he was a bit grumpy, and it wasn't my first point of call to want to work with an organic chemist. It's not what I wanted to do. And someone else, one of the tech transfer guys in Bangor, said, if you think you could do this, you're duty bound to try and do it. So that's why I got involved. So I think that's the proudest moment,
Okay, well, thank you very much. I hope, I mean, as some of the people in the audience have said, some things might have gone over our head in the sense of not being the sort of chemist and understanding some of maybe the biology. But in terms of the impact, I think that came across. And my background, as people will know, is healthcare. So I'm at the other end of it in terms of being able to make a difference to the patients that I've worked with in the past. And I think that's really is something that, I mean, I know, Simon, you've talked about as working with industry, etc. And, you know, the research agenda really is very much more about impact at the moment, in terms it's not just us sitting in institutions doing things. What difference is it going to make? And I know I upset sometimes some of my own research students by saying the kind of so what thing, and that is what it comes down to at the end of the day, is we're doing all of this activity, but what difference is it going to make? And I think you've quite clearly illustrated that through your talk about both the potential of the things that you've got coming online, but also some of the things that have happened in the past. So thank you very much for taking us through that journey, Chris. And obviously people have got an opportunity still to kind of mingle and chat and come and ask you questions. So thank you.
Thank you.